So often we trust systems with the deepest parts of us that means the most, like our children, our time, and our health. But sometimes those systems fail to nurture and protect our well-being. And we believe that it was built for our best interests. But when they fail to protect us and our best interests, we deal with the agony and tragedy that is lost after injustice. My name is Asha Sekhmet. I am a Tantra practitioner, oracle, thought leader, and my purpose is to build a sovereign community with like-minded souls to become closer to the Creator without strict religious doctrine. We are the Maji Community. We practice a spiritual life system. We practice polygamy and group marriages, and sovereignty and tribalism. I want to talk about a very sensitive topic that is very near and dear to my heart. As we see with the devices that we have, a lot of the injustices that is happening around the world, but also in the West particularly. I recently saw a video of a man who was just so distraught and upset that his child told him that their teacher was abusing them physically. And he disclosed that his teacher was a white female. And so he went to the school and he was very upset, right? As any parent would be. And he was bringing up race, right? Because his child is non-white in American school systems, and he was just very upset, like so upset. And it just reminded me of all of the different videos that I see sometimes that comes out with a similar situation in the healthcare system, right, in the US. And I want to talk about the difference between reciprocity, the law of reciprocity in the universe, and equality. Okay? So, with all the different injustices, right, that exist, let's frame this and connect this to how do we get to sovereignty, right? Because as emotionally sensitive as this topic is, right? When you believe that a system, a business, or a corporation has your best interest at heart, right? You believe this, but sometimes they're not designed for that, right? Sometimes it is just about money. Sometimes it is a lack of spirit, right? So when you're not in a sovereign community of people that you trust and you build with, and you're taking education into your own hands, you're taking healthcare into your own hands, growing your own food into your own hands, then the byproduct of having someone else do that for you is you can have injustice out of that, because you are having someone else have the responsibility for you and your family's health, education, and livelihood and time, right? So that doesn't make it right? Like, these are humanitarian issues, right? That doesn't make it right at all. However, let's talk about the law of reciprocity. So this is a universal law, and another way to word this is cause and effect, right? So reciprocity is not exactly equality. Let me give an example, okay? So when the women's rights movement started in America, that was searching for equality, right? Equality between men and women. Women entered the workforce, and now so many generations later, women are now complaining about the same thing of having the equal rights as a man, right? And status in work conditions. So now that is equality, right? So now a different gender based on law, right? The law of nature, you're a different gender, but when you have equality to a man, then you're going to get the byproduct of women not being truly fulfilled and happy in a society like this. But you have the ability to work, right, and do things like a man, in this particular part of the world, right, in this construct of this American society. That is equality. But we see when we apply the law of cause and effect that is governed by the universe, right? This comes more from God, not man-made, but God. Then you see the law of cause and effect at play when you have the modern generation of women today complaining of being tired, outworked. Now I'm seeing more of like, oh, we should have time off on our menstrual. Well, that is the law of reciprocity, cause and effect that's now coming. You get what you dish out, right? That's cause and effect. For every action, there's a reaction, right? So this is a very deep spiritual principle. Okay. Now continue to follow me. Now that we have that, we have that, right? And even if we talk about more of, let's say, like the civil rights movement with Black African Americans choosing equality, right? Equality of white Americans. When Black Americans integrated into that and there was integration, then we see a decline in the economic sovereignty of Black African Americans. That is equality. So now, right, which that wasn't true equality, but you're seeing cause and effect, right? Because our sole being of being what I am, I'm not, right, the same, right? And I shouldn't be integrating necessarily and living the same type of lifestyle as someone of a different ethnic group, because I have my own, right? I should be speaking, a natural language that's natural to me, living a life system that's natural to me. Science have proven we have different biochemistry based on your ethnic background. So that has to be accounted for when you're talking about living a life system, right? And that does affect economics, that affects other areas of life, family, community, right? So equality is not the same thing as the law of reciprocity, right? But when you choose to use equality, then observing the law of cause and effect, then you understand why tragedy and injustice happens out of that, right? And this is not to have judgment or blame on any particular person, being, or anything, right? This is really a conversation based on my opinion and some of my thoughts on this topic. And when we're talking about achieving justice and achieving balance, so I look at it from a more spiritual lens. And when I apply the laws that governs the universe, then I'm able to gain awareness. When you have awareness, right, consciousness only can come from God. Okay. So with that consciousness, I can do better. When we consciously choose who we want to be in community with and taking responsibility in our own power, finding our own inner sovereignty and working with other human beings that we trust, and we build our own systems, healthcare, in reality for ourselves that nurture the type of reality we want our children to grow up in and our communities to thrive in. When we take that, we're moving towards sovereignty, right? So that is powerful, but it is also a very high responsibility, because people also like opting out of that because some people like to point the finger, if they make a taking accountability for the choices that you choose, right? Some people don't like doing that, right? Some people like being able to point and say, oh, I did this because this, right? Because this person did this and this was the influencing factor. And but when you take true inner sovereignty into your own hands, then you also have to take the accountability of the downsides of things that can come out of that, right? And when I say downsides, it's not downsides, it's just a fact of life, right? Life is about experience, growth, and learning, right? It's not about perfection. But this is a different level of consciousness. Okay. So as we are shifting into the new earth consciousness, this is where the human beings that will be prepared for this and ascending to this new earth consciousness, it's about that, us elevating to our own inner sovereignty. As someone who has had experience as an educator in the American school system, and also just coming from a family of educators, I've personally had made the conscious choice that I will not be birthing a child and their education will be this, right? That the like the American education system. That's my conscious choice, right? Now, someone could feel very upset emotionally about that, right? Because they're like, well, what if you have a child and that's hard to like navigate that when you think about all these different things, like, work related stuff. And you're like, well, and then I also do not want to birth a child to have numbers attached to their all caps legal name. That's a dead entity. I don't want to birth a child into a matrix like that. And that's my right. Right. And someone could get upset or emotionally triggered hearing someone opting out of that. But the reality is that we have free will, and that doesn't necessarily mean that I'm ending my bloodline. It means that I choose sovereignty over slavery, right? That's just like if you were on in the chattel enslavement from Africa to the Americas, and some of the slaves choosing to end their life and jump off the boat and not come to the Americas to get chained in slavery, you're going to judge that human's conscious choice to do that? No, you're not going to do that. And this is really about us making a choice, right? Life is about choices. So for me, I choose to build in community with like-minded souls, human beings who also are like-minded and going towards sovereignty, right? The Maji community does not necessarily represent a like one racial group. We're really a soul community, like our soul tribe, right? You will see me talk some and a lot about the experience of being a Black person born in America, right? And the construct of that. Sometimes you will hear me talk about that, but I don't consider myself Black anymore, right? I don't identify with that. I say I'm an indigenous woman, but the reason that I talk about that is because that, again, we go back to the laws of reciprocity, right? I was born and reincarnated in this experience. And at some point in time, I did think I was a Black woman. At some point in time, I did believe in these identities that was taught to me of what it means to be a Black woman in America. That was my real lived experience. Now, I've gained a higher level of consciousness and, getting in tune with my soul, that I transcended out of that in terms of having someone choose an identity for me, I know I'm a woman, right? I'll never be confused about that. But it would be irresponsible for me to not talk about that experience for those who also experience that, who are looking for an alternative path like myself, right? Who look like me. Okay. But even so, the Maji community, though, we represent a community where you can transcend your humanness, right? It's going to be based on life paths, and it's really about those who are seeking true freedom, not in luxury in terms of material things, freedom of the soul, right? So that's what we're about. And it's really about living peaceful, right? So one of the primary ways that we do that in the infrastructure of my work is group marriages, right? And this is very important because this ties us into, okay, groups of human beings get together. We're about sovereignty. We want to be able to have thriving communities for our children, safe X, Y, and Z. But we're human. Humans have emotions in relationships, for the majority with the opposite sex. So this means, in terms of attraction, the driving force behind communities is love. That's what motivates people to do what they want to do, right? A person that's getting up and working multiple jobs to make sure that they're taking care of their family and they're working in a community or with their family, they're doing that because they love their children, right? They're doing that because they love their spouse and they want to contribute to their household, right? So take a concept like that and think of it from a perspective of, now we're responsible for not only acquiring income for our family, but also the education that they're being taught, the food that needs to be grown to feed them, their health, right? Monitoring the development of their health, and when things come up that needs to be taken care of their health. That is living sovereign, right? And one family, right, just one man and one woman can't maintain all of that. You need a village. So in order to do that, you would have to share mates. Yeah, right? Especially for sister wives, right? Women organizing together in a community and sharing husbands. And then also for our community, right, it's polyamory. So sometimes you can have intimate relationships with the opposite sex that is not sexual based at all, or it could not even be romantic. It could just be business, right? But that is it could be a level of intimacy that comes with that, right? So we really have the infrastructure for wifehood and husbandhood in the Maji community so that people can practice functional polyamory. Functional polyamory is not sexual based. Okay. We have advanced intimacy practices like Tantra that is able to maintain our intimacy needs. So we're able to be at a higher level, superior man, superior woman. Okay. So I just wanted to give my thoughts about that. And ultimately, when we tie everything back to the law of reciprocity, right? It's this deep thing that, in my experience, a lot of modern people don't really understand the principle of it on an even deeper level. Like, even in working conditions, it'd be like, you are like a manager, and when you have things going on personally with your life, you want people to be considerate and empathetic. But how you operate with your employees, you're not like that. You don't show that level of grace. You don't show that level of empathy that you would want if something was happening in your life personally. That's someone who, like I said, that's not reciprocity. But I see it all the time. Just people are just so deep in what is in it for me. And that's not reciprocity. So this is shifting. This is what we teach in the Maji community. It's a shift from the I to we. So the group collective consciousness is, what can I contribute to the whole? When you start thinking like that, good things come back to you. And I've tested this to my own life experience, right? When I give that grace and understanding and also holding people accountable and, you know, seriousness of community building, when I put that out, I get it back. That's reciprocity. That's cause and effect, right? And so it's a very deep principle. I just wanted to talk about this to give you some thought-provoking ideas and topics to think about as we're navigating this new world we're about to come into. New consciousness. And lastly, I just wanted to share, when I was mentioning this conversation with my husband, it was just a situation. We were talking about a woman who complaining about the amount of costs to send her son to a school that she likes the curriculum and education better than another school, but she has to pay a lot more money. But she is not a wife. She sucks at being a partner with a man. She doesn't know how to validate a man. She doesn't know how to work in a relationship and be in community. So again, consciousness comes from God. So there's steps to it. You have to work through your relationships as a foundation and ascend to that before you get the consciousness to learn how to live abundantly and sustainably where you're not in a situation like that. That's what life is about. So I just wanted to end on that topic. So let me know y'all thoughts in the comments. I wanted to just share this with you all. I'm curious to know y'all thoughts and just how we can deeply go into our inner sovereignty. All right, so I just wanted to share as well that we have the Maji Community Mystery School that is up on School. You can start with the Master Masculinity and Femininity Academy, that first course, dropping so many gems that will give you just a foundation, and it is free. So you can click the link in my bios on social media. I am Asha Sekhmet. Take a look at the private group that we have there and learn and get the education so that you're prepared for this new world of true sovereignty in the way that God designed us to live as human beings, which is just finding the God within, that inner sovereignty within. All right, I hope you all enjoy this video and like this video, subscribe to my channel, and I will see you all in the next video.